Americans demand to know why anti-Trump FBI agent Strzock still has a job. By Amy Moreno for TruthFeedNews.com. There's a burning question that millions of people are asking day in and day out, and especially after reading the damning IG report. Why on earth does anti-Trump FBI agent Peter Strzock still have a job? FBI Director Christopher Wray and Attorney General Sessions have some explaining to do. If any of us did what Strzock did, we'd have been fired by now. The Washington Examiner. A burning question in Washington right now is why Peter Strzock, a top FBI agent who demonstrated anti-Trump bias, still has a job at the agency. Why is Peter Strzock still working at the FBI? Representative Jim Jordan asked Saturday on Fox News after a bombshell Justice Department Inspector General report showed Strzock and Lisa Page, an FBI lawyer with whom he was having an affair, talked about how they might stop then-candidate Trump from becoming president. The Watchdog report showed Page wrote Strzock in August of 2016 asking Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? Strzock responded, no, he won't. We'll stop it. The IG concluded that Strzock's text, along with other disparaging messages, is not only indicative of a biased state of mind, but even more seriously implies a willingness to take official action to impact the presidential candidate's electoral prospects. The text messages potentially indicated or created the appearance that investigative decisions were impacted by bias or improper considerations, the Watchdog report added. While Inspector General Michael Horowitz referred his findings on Strzock to be the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility for possible disciplinary measures, Strzock's lawyer, Eitan Goldman, claimed every witness asked by the OIG said that Strzock's work was never influenced by political views. What a crock, right? Strzock worked in a senior capacity on both the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, and we saw how that worked out, and Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. Strzock was removed from the Mueller probe after it was discovered that about those texts. Okay, yeah. So some, like famed lawyer Alan Dershowitz, are outright perturbed by Strzock and Page's apparent intent to meddle in the election, and he questioned why Strzock remains at the Bureau. You're not allowed to try to use your office to stop somebody from being elected president of the United States, Dershowitz said on Fox News on Sunday. Meanwhile, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes openly wondered whether someone tried to suppress Page's text in that exchange, as Strzock's "will stop it" reply had already surfaced before the IG report. You have to understand, because that text message is so damning and shows intent and shows the context of all other text messages that surround the text message, and it's at the beginning of the investigation, you have to ask yourself, did somebody actually try to remove that text message from the FBI, Nunes asked on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo. I think the answer, it's hard for the American people not to believe that was not removed on purpose. On the Democratic side of the debate, there is ambivalence. Asked Sunday on NBC's Meet the Press if Strzock should still be at the FBI at this point, House Intelligence Committee ranking member Adam Schiff replied, "I don't know." Yeah, of course you don't know. You know everything else except that. I imagine that the Office of Professional Responsibility will have to make that decision, he continued. Certainly these text messages are very troubling. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. The fact that they were on a work email, the fact that they were commingled with emails discussing business, all that's problematic. Again, The IG concluded that none of this affected decision making. Let's go there again. But nonetheless, that was completely inappropriate. With all the uncertainty up in the air, lawmakers will be able to grill FBI Director Christopher Wray about this very topic and others this week when he testifies along with Horowitz before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Wray defended the FBI at large on Thursday amid fallout from the IG report, stressing nothing in the report impugns the integrity of our workforce as a whole or the FBI as an institution. He did acknowledge that a small number of FBI employees connected with the events detailed in the report. Lawmakers may also soon get a crack at Strzock himself, whose lawyer this weekend said his client will voluntarily appear and testify before any congressional panel that invites him. His testimony was already being sought after by House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte. A member of that committee is Jordan, who on Saturday gave a preview of the line of questioning he would press upon Strzock if given the opportunity. Calling Strzock a key player, Jordan said he'd want to grill Strzock on the sequence of events that coincided with text messages he shared with Page, including one in the summer of 2016, about a week after the authorization of the Russia investigation, which he discussed an insurance policy, quote, that Republicans wonder was aimed at a Trump presidency. I mean, it's just so obvious. I mean, it's just sickening at this point.
With me now is a House Judiciary Committee member, Republican Congressman from Ohio, Jim Jordan. Congressman, always good to see you. A number of your colleagues are chomping at a bit to see Mr. Horowitz next week, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, when he comes to talk to folks.
And Mr. Rosenstein, he's going to be in front of us in the next few weeks as well.
This is like an Avengers movie. It gets better and better. So, what do you want to hear first of all out of the Inspector General? A lot of you, is a straight shooter, came down the middle on all of this. Your thoughts?
I think there's some key questions. Like number one, why is Peter Strzock still employed at the FBI? I mean, all the other major players are gone. Comey's been fired. Deputy Director McCabe fired. Faces a criminal referral. Lied 3 times under oath. Jim Baker, former general counsel, is gone. Was demoted before he left the FBI. Lisa Page was demoted. She's left the FBI. Jim Rubicki, Comey's chief of staff, has also left the FBI. Why is Peter Strzock still there in light of what we learned from the IG's report? I think that's an important question for Mr. Wray and Mr. Rosenstein when they come in front of Congress.
But if you got your hands on Strzock himself, and there many of your colleagues want to subpoena him to testify, what would you want to hear of him? Of course, he has very disparaging views of then candidate Trump. We know that he was providing a lot of the research and early, footwork for Bob Mueller since fired.
No, you're right.
But what do you want to hear from him?
He's the key player. He's the central figure throughout this entire narrative. Ran the Clinton investigation, was the lead investigator on the Russia investigation. He's the central character, and I think those sequence of text messages are important. Remember, Peter Strzock opens the Russian investigation on July 31st. 8 days later, we have the text message that we saw in the report. We will stop Trump from being president. 1 week after that, we have the text message, August 15th, which says we need the insurance policy to make sure Trump isn't president. I'd want to walk through that sequence all the way up through September 2nd, where we have another text message from Mr. Strzock where he says POTUS, President Obama, POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. The operative word there is everything. So I would want to walk through that sequence. You opened it on the 31st, and what happens in the next 4.5 weeks in those text messages, I think tells a lot. We need to unpack that and get answers from Mr. Strzock when he comes in for his deposition.
Still, there are a lot of Democrats who are seizing on this, sort of saying that there's confusion and that Republicans are divided. You guys seem to be suing each other for documents, whether it's Rod Rosenstein and now he will go the other way at you to simply push for the same thing. On that, Republicans are eating themselves alive on this. What do you make of that?
Well, let's be clear. Rod Rosenstein isn't giving us the material we're entitled to have as a separate and equal branch of government to do our constitutional duty of oversight. And in addition to not giving us the material,
he has to do his constitutional duty, and that what you're doing gets in the way of that.
Rod Rosenstein's name was never on a ballot. He wasn't elected to anything, but the House of Representatives and people in the United States Senate were, and we are a separate branch of government entitled to that information. So instead of fighting us all the time and instead of threatening staff members on the Intelligence Committee, why don't you just give us the stuff we're entitled to see so we can figure out and get answers for the American people?
Do you think the president should fire him?
I think Rod Rosenstein is frankly skating on thin ice, and if he doesn't start giving us the information, I think you're going to see more things happen in the House. We filed a resolution last week, Mr. Meadows and I did, that says, sense of the Congress, if you don't give us this information, there's going to be a vote in the United States Congress. I think that will happen sometime soon. I'm hopeful it will. And then there's also contempt, there's also impeachment, but he needs to give us that information and quit threatening. I mean, think about that. The head of the Department of Justice threatening staff members in a separate branch of government, trying to do their jobs, trying to get answers for the American people. And why is it, Neil, why is it the most explosive 50-some thousand text messages between Strzock and Page? And the one we've not seen, the one we didn't see until this report was the most explosive one. We will stop Trump. Why didn't Rod Rosenstein show us that one earlier when we saw the insurance policy text, we've seen the text with all the bias and animus towards President Trump. Why wasn't we just see this one on 2 days ago when the report comes out? So those are some of the other questions we have for Mr. Rosenstein and Mr. Wray.
Real quickly, the president says this whole thing with the IG report vindicates him. Do you agree?
I think it shows how the bias that existed at the top people. Again, not the rank and file agents who are doing good work, but the top people. He says
it vindicates him and exonerates him. Do you agree with that?
I think it shows that we know there's been no evidence of any coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia. A year of Mr. Mueller's investigation, no evidence. So this report, I think, buttresses what we already know and shows the bias that existed. Even the Inspector General says we do have no confidence that Strzock's decision was free from bias. They even say that in their report.
Congressman, thank you very, very much.
He held back a little bit when he said, does this exonerate Trump? He held back. I still think a lot of people are afraid of Mueller. A lot of people are afraid of Mueller. I don't know who Mueller is, but I just can tell you he's not the president. So it should be the other way around. Mueller should be afraid. But let's see what takes place. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.